I would be your host for this event, and this is our second edition. So first edition, talking about the first edition, Pranay and I gave about MySQL databases, and today we are going to talk about Blackfire. So if you are like me and search for Blackfire, I think you got a DC character in front, first of all. So we are not going to talk about her, but we will talk about is the integration tool that is used for PHP, which tracks the monitoring of bugs and performance enhancements. So त्यही कुराहरूलाई चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ आज कुरा गर्छौँ अनि त्यसको बारेमा चाहिँ एन्जल दाइले भन्नुहुन्छ है त ओके सो स्टार्टिङ विथ आई अलवेज स्टार्ट विथ वाइ के आई एम अ बिग fan of Simon Sinek अनि उसले भने जस्तै always start with why. So why are we doing these Proshore events? So basically, so main goal of this event is to create a community where you guys, where us, people like us, who are just learning, who knows a little bit of information, and those who want to share it with others. So we want to build a community about including those people. So that was why we started these Proshore events, and we have already done one event, as I said earlier, and this is our second. So please be open to any question. So you can ask any question you want. You don't need to be scared. We are all about building those cultures and asking those questions, right? Okay. So a quick note before I introduce our speaker for today. So if you have any question, do send it to me or Proshore Events. We will have a 15-minute Q&A session after Angel Dai is done. And we will be taking on some of the questions that you have, and we will be discussing it. Right. Okay, so moving towards introducing Angel Dai. So Angel Dai has completed his master in computer engineering from NCIT College, and he has 9.5 years of experience working in PHP applications as well. So talking about his hobbies, he likes to read books, and he's one of a great singer. So you can go check him out on his YouTube channel as well. So over to you, Angel Dai.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Viraj, for my lovely introduction. Okay, I'll try to speak mostly in English, but so if I'm not comfortable at times, I'll be using Nepali in between. So please pardon me for that. So yeah, so I'm glad to have you all here today to learn something on this Friday. So yeah, without taking much time, I would like to start. Yeah, so about Blackfire, I hope some of you guys have already been acquainted with this tool, Blackfire, or maybe some of you haven't heard of it at all. So today I'm going to share what I know about Blackfire, so that sharing is caring, and especially when we share knowledge, we also gain knowledge. So when preparing this presentation itself, so it helped me gain some of the insights that I hadn't known, although I had used it. Talking about Blackfire, so although Biraj mentioned that I've been working on PHP for 9 years, but just recently, since few months, I've got a chance to use this tool, and I've been a fan of this ever since. So let's start. So if you have been developing with PHP for a while, so you guys should have seen this error in your life quite a few times, and it's not a good situation to be in, especially when these kind of things are in production, and you have to act quick to find out where in your code the things are going wrong, where in your code most of the resources are being consumed. And by resources, I mean in terms of execution time and the memory. So when this happens, we tend to use the first thing we try to do is, if we don't have the right tools, then we try to go into the code and add some micro times before and after some functions to see which function is taking much of the time, execution time, or you do that for the memory using memory get uses functions with PHP. But to, it's so tedious to do this because you have to find out the right places where the things are going wrong, and you tend to keep this code and the many places just to find spending hour before just an hour before finding out where the thing is going wrong. So we have Blackfire to the rescue in these kinds of things that allows us to uh, profile the entire request, all our PHP request, and then it will help to track where all the function calls that it has made and how many times those function calls are made and what amount of resources those functions are uh, taking in terms of time, in terms of memory. Blackfire is a tool that is that they are for paid services as well as free services. But today I'm going to talk more about the free services they offer. In short, if to know about Blackfire, it is a code performance observability solution. That means you can observe your code, how it's behaving in terms of performance, and then you are able to act it. So this can be integrated in the development software development life cycle, in the development phase, where you can after you develop something, you can check your code with Blackfire, how the resources are being distributed, and then also to validate it in the staging with some amount of client data. And then also in production, this Blackfire allows to monitor if some of the requests are getting slower with the increasing in number of users, traffic, etc. Okay, so Blackfire mainly it provides us mainly three features. The first feature it provides is the monitoring. You see over here. So monitoring is a thing that is done in the live environment. So when your software is live, so it helps to find out when the things are going wrong and where the things are going wrong. So whenever there is some request that is taking more resources and where the performance scale budget is getting bigger, then this monitoring phase allows us to detect that kind of problems. So the main thing is that the monitoring helps you find out where in your system, I mean, which request in your system, the request is slower, and then the next feature the Blackfire provides is profiling system. So after you know that where in your request you have some problems, then the next step would be to profile your code, so that in profiling phase, you have detailed assessment of all the functions like I mentioned earlier about Blackfire in the first slide. So in this phase, in the profiling phase, you run the profiler against your code, against the request, and you see which parts has your request taken, which functions it has called, how many times those functions are called, and how much amount of resources they are been taken. So monitoring helps you find out where in the system has problem, which request is slower in the surface level, and the profiling helps you find out in detail why your request is slower, right? And then it also offers the feature of testing, the features of performance testing. Uh, that means you can write just like you write the unit test. It is possible to write tests like this request should not consume more than this amount of resources. It should not consume more than X amount of seconds or X amount of megabyte in terms of memory. So those kinds of testing can also be written in Blackfire, and that can be integrated in your CI/CD pipeline, so that so that when your requests or when your customers or clients are growing, then you are able to detect it in advance. And when some performance budget is not met, even your pipelines will fail. So in this presentation, I've been not dealing with the monitoring and testing phase, but mostly with the profiling phase, so that when you know something is slower, then instead of using those micro time and memory usage functions of PHP, you can use Blackfire to learn and quickly find out how your code is behaving, where your code is get using uh, more amount of resources. So enough with the background. So before moving on into how it's installed, before moving into knowing about the architecture of Blackfire, I would like to take you guys to a live demonstration of profiling so that you have some ideas how it looks, and then you guys can understand and practically how it works. Then I'll take you through the installation and architecture phase. For the purpose of this demonstration, I have taken an open source project I found in GitHub, and I have constructed it in my Docker. This is a simple hotel management app where we have customers and we have rooms. So the customers are to reserve their various rooms for various amount of days, various number of days. And it's a simple hotel management app. I'll just show you a database, what the entities are there. So mainly it has customers and who can book rooms. And when booking a room, the transaction is recorded. And then for each transaction, they make payments, and room can be of different types, like deluxe room, suite room, etc. Okay, so going back to the application, here I've made, for this demonstration, I have made this simple request where you have want to export all these customers. Right now in my database, I have around 7,000 users, but for the time so that we can profile the things quickly, I am exporting 2,000 users. So it's taking some time because I've deliberately make this slow to have some insights. So you see that we have around 2,000 customers, and the customers have name, address, gender, date of birth, and also the transactions, all the transactions that customers has performed. And in the transaction, we know the room type, and check-in and check-out date, and total price paid for that transaction. Okay, so now uh, let me take you thoroughly to the how it is developed at the moment. So starting from this is done on the Laravel, and we have a simple action over here to export, and which uses this service customers with transactions. And in this, I fetch all the customers. It's limited to the 2,000 at the moment. And then I construct the customer rows, the things we want to export for the fields of the customer. Also, it uses another DTO, another object transaction rows there. And to make this customer, to create this customer row, we have a factory, so which gets a customer from these transactions. So for each customer, it can create a customer row, and for each customer, it fetches the transactions and provides data to initialize this object. And then finally, the controller can convert that to JSON and throw it to the output screen. So this is what is happening. Now let's start profiling this and see how this code is flowing. Okay, so I've already opened this. Blackfire provides extensions. I'll talk about the installation thing later on. So in the request, it provides us this kind of extension tool. Then I can start, say, profile this. So we notice that when I open this thing, this page for the first time, it took around 4 to 5 seconds, something like that. But now it's taking time to profile it. It will take around a minute, I think. So this is because Blackfire doesn't give us output on the basis of one single request. So in the background, it makes multiple requests to get a good sample of data so that we have more accurate data, because one request may be affected by number of things in your system. So because of other things going on in your system. So it does the averaging of those, all those profiles to give us more meaningful result. So let's wait for a while. And we can also name this. And for the sake of this, I've already prepared this demonstration, and I'm on branch stage 1, and I'll do a couple of round of optimization, which I've already committed in stage 2 and stage 3. Let's also name this one. So I have 2000 customers on stage 1. This. So while this is going on, let me also already give in the hint how this works. So after the profiles are generated, all the data is sent to the Blackfire server. I have a Blackfire account with me. I have a free account at the moment. So these are the list of profiles I've already generated. Okay, it's almost done. And after these profiles are generated in our PHP, it is uploaded to the Blackfire server, so that even this profile I'm able to share with you guys with some simple URL, so that when working in team, we can analyze on the fly without needing to have the code. Okay, so we have the profile ready. It took 13 seconds. So our first request took 13 seconds. That's quite big for 2000 users. And also in memory, it took around 40 megabyte of memory. So this is the profile we have. If you are using a paid version, then there are more options over here to know also about the input output time, CPU time. But right now, since I'm using free version, so I'm going to deal with only the execution time and the memory uses, because most of the time our applications are slow because of the resources. Most of the time we have the resource problems in terms of execution time and the memory. If you are using paid versions, it also provides some recommendations. So it provides special recommendations for Symfony, Laravel frameworks on what are the problems you have in this request and how it can be optimized. But right now, since I'm using free version, I'm not going through that. I'm going to only explain what this graph is and how do we analyze this graph. So we can switch between the time view and the memory view, just clicking like this. And this is a time view, this is memory view. And here we have all the function calls that has been made to make this export. And they are by default organized on the descending order in terms of most resources used. So this function is called in our system around 19,000 times. And here we see this blue bars. This indicates the amount of memory it has used. So we need to understand what is exclusive memory and what is inclusive memory over here. Exclusive memory is the memory taken by that function to execute the statements within that functions, but not the function calls that it makes. So within a function, we can have number of other function calls, and then it can go on as a chain effect. So the exclusive is the one that includes the things that are going on only in that function. And the inclusive is the total time, total memory consumed. But that means when it came into that function and went out of that function, how much resources it has consumed as a total. Okay, so here we see so that some huge difference. We see that exclusive memory is only 4.88 MB and inclusive memory is 31.7 MB. This means that it this function along the statements in this function along to 4.88 MB. Normally, when there is a big dark blue bars like this, then those are the ones which is taking the most of the memory in the system. Okay, so the same with the time. The time also have exclusive time and inclusive time for the functions. Now in the right, we have the graph. So in this graph, each of this block is called the node. And here we see, in case of Laravel, there are a lot of things going on in the background before we reach our actual application code. So we see everything starts from main, and its amount of resources is 100% over here because as this is the inclusive memory. That means to go in and out of this function, it has total of 39.6 megabyte. And then in various phases, there are in respective phases, this memory is split into various blocks as it goes on, and we have to find out from where which block is consuming a lot of resources. So we see it's 100% over here, and then this one is going one. This one is being called one time, one time, one time, one time. It goes on, and we reach our application controller over here, which is 90%. So 10% is being used by some other front middleware stuff things, and now 90% is being done on our controller itself. Among the 90% too, the service we have, the main service we have, the customer transactions, it is using 84% of the memory, that is 33 megabyte, and it alone took 13 seconds to run. And if we see further on this graph, what we see that up to here it was the one time. So when we have a lot of requests like this, then there can be some potential problems. So it is calling 2000 times customer row factory. In this case, could be fine because for all its customers, it has to create customer row factory. That means creating of the objects. But going further down over here, see this first method of Eloquent being called 13,000 times, and for 2000 users, it is already calling 13,000 times. And we know that this first is a query, Eloquent query, and we already see some kind of problem from this without looking at the code, just looking at this graph, right? So this blue block, we see the darker the color of this block is, the more the resources it has consumed, and the thicker the borders of these nodes are, the more resources it has consumed. So these light ones are less significant in our analysis. What Blackfire does is that it profiles all the functions that has been called in our system. That also includes the built-in PHP functions and also the framework functions. So in this case, this is done from the PDO, and we don't have control over this, right? We cannot control we cannot change things to optimize the built-in functions. So once the functions is called, it's entirely upon the PHP implementation, or even we cannot change the implementation in the framework itself. The only thing we can control is our application code. And but the thing we can do is we can make sure that we see that we cannot control this function, but it is being called 19,000 times, but we can make sure that it doesn't happen, right? So to do that, we can make some changes in our application code. So if we go back to this, we see that we detected that it has a lot of first method being called from the customer row factory. Then I can go to the customer row factory and see So you see the first is being called. So this is lazy loading is being done, and obviously we have an n+1 problem in this. So for each for 2000 customers, it is calling 2000 times to fetch a number, 2000 times to fetch a room name, and even here 2000 times to fetch just to fetch the customer ID. So I've already improved this, removing doing some eager loading stuff. Let me go to the stage 2 now. So I've done some improvement on this code already. So now instead of those first call, I directly defined directly called those attributes, and where we fetch the customers, we already do the eager loading to fetch all those data we need, right? Now let's see how this behaves. It's almost instantaneous now. Now let's profile this again. This profiling should be faster than previous one, because now it is taking lesser amount of execution time already. I haven't done a lot of things to improve memory yet. And when seeing on Blackfire, if we see, there is two options over here. It has also a distributed profiling, but the distributed profiling is only available on the paid versions. That distributed profiling means if you have a microservice kind of uh, projects, then you have a lot of HTTP calls going on for one request, then all those requests can be combined into one profile. So right now I'm just requesting one single thing, one single request. And also it has a disable aggregation kind of thing. Aggregation means I can just do a one take a sample of one request instead of the Blackfire doing multiple sample requests in the back and to average them. To make it faster, it can also do disable aggregation thing. Okay, so now we see already the result of this. We see the time has dropped to already 2 seconds. Still the memory is around the same. Let's go to this. Okay, so now the graph has totally changed. So this graph is changed because what Blackfire does is that it only shows the significant block. Once because before it, the first block, the thing that's the first was the significant one. So it showed that those blocks, but now it is not significant anymore. That's significant anymore. This is not the one, I think. So this block should be gone in the newer one. So we don't see the first call anymore over here. And instead we may have different kind of blocks, because once the bigger chunk of before we were sampling in terms of 13 seconds, now we have the smaller sample smaller things, so other things may come in effect, so that other things are more significant, and those blocks could be shown over here. So now still we have some problems with the memory, so maybe we can also do this better. So it still is using 39 MB, which is also big for this. I did take one small step for this. So I only selected the fields I want now. I had before I was selecting all the complete transaction object, complete payment object, payment room object. Now I only select the ones that I really need in the export. Now let's see what the effect does it have. uh, 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 I forgot to name this one. Okay. Okay, it's profiling again. Okay, so memory has also dropped, but not so much, only some around uh, 8 MB in this case. But if that goes for, if when we do that for uh, all the user customers I have in the system, 7,000, and even that will grow, this will still grow. So one tip is that when we try to do some analysis, so it may not be possible for us to profile the big things because it will be very slow to generate those profile. It will generating the profile may take alone number even hour for the big very slow request with the number of users. So the one tip is to start it slow. So I may start with the 10,000 and 2,000, 1,000 users, then the 2,000 users and 3,000 users, and we can try to find out which one is exponentially growing, which section is exponentially growing. And one cool thing it provides, Blackfire already provides, is that if you go to our list of profiles that we have, so we can already compare. So let me compare the stage 1 versus stage 3 already. So this provides us the comparison between the two function calls to separate optimized versions. So in your, when we want to find which one code is exponentially growing, we may run this profiler with for 10, 1,000, 2,000 successively, and then 3,000, and then against the same code, so that we realize which part is actually growing. Because in some cases we don't have option of uh, we don't have we need to, data will grow itself and we don't have control over it, so we have to live with it. But we have to make sure that the things see if some uh, things can be controlled. So this visualization, this comparison gives us a nice visualization that, okay, I'm able to reduce this execution from, because there is no first thing anymore, call anymore, so to the 0 seconds. And the memory is 26 MB to gigabyte. In this case, even we can click on the its block and see it on the left. Our main block we were interested in is this one, this service where it creates fetches all those data. We see that the memory has dropped from 33 MB to 25 MB, and this in seconds in terms of 86% less memory, and the overall that request was 25% less in terms of memory and 85% less in terms of execution time. This is just an example. So yeah. Uh, Up to now, I showed you all this profiling from the browser extension. This is our browser extension, Blackfire Profiler. So sometimes we also want to run the profile the commands we can make in our application. So that can be done through the terminal. Right now, I have installed everything in my Docker, so I can do something like, I have a Blackfire service installed inside the Docker. And inside Blackfire, I want to use, if you are not using Docker, your command would start just from here. So if you have a Blackfire installed in your system, then you can just use Blackfire and do curl. All right, I have insecure HTTP request, so I'm just doing this. No, I need to use Docker episode. Let me check if I have the container on. Seems to be correct. So now I run this command with the in the terminal, and the same thing that it does it generate the profile, and then the result we can see in the browser itself because it is uploaded to the Blackfire server after it's done. So when we want to do the post requests, we can integrate, we can do the post requests with this call and start profiling with the terminal. Okay, so this was about the demo. Now I think you guys have some idea of how Blackfire works. What are the uh, exciting things about Blackfire profiling PHP applications with Blackfire? Now I want to move towards what are the components the Blackfire provides to make this work. Okay. When installing Blackfire, we generally have to install three things. One is the language extension. So we have to install the extension in PHP, just like we installed the other extensions in PHP. So that is one thing. And then other thing we have to install is a Blackfire agent that it provides. And this has to be installed in the operating system. And when installing Blackfire agent, we need the server ID and server token and client ID and client token that is provided when you sign up to the Blackfire. And the third thing we need is a profiling client. The profiling client is the one I showed you in the browser extension that is called profiling client. And from there, I click the profile thing. So we need to install all these things to make this work. If you don't install the profiling client, we'll have to use a terminal. So how this works is that, so so this is a client. When you click the button and the extension, then it authenticates with the Blackfire, so that I have a correct I have the correct account. And then once the account is verified, then it makes requests to the server, PHP server, and the PHP language extension, it is also called the PHP Pro. For Python, Blackfire is also available for Python and Go, but in this case, for PHP, it collects all the raw profiles at this phase when running in the PHP server, and then the information it generated around the profile regarding the profiles is sent to the agent. This agent compiles the result, the raw profiles from this sent from the PHP Pro, and then uploads it to the Blackfire, and then which is stored in the storage, and then we see through the browser our result in terms of graph that we just saw. So initially when I started to work with this, it was easier to install in our own system in the OS, but it was a bit tricky to install in the Docker. So that's why I'm explaining this one. So the main thing is that you have to install when you in your PHP image, you have to make sure that the extension is installed, and then you can fire a separate container for Blackfire. So in my case, I have that like this. So this image is already available for Blackfire, and you have to just use the tokens provided by when you sign up. This is the agent part, and I have the image, PHP image built over here. So it provides, you can find this in the documentation of the Blackfire itself in the Docker section, Docker PHP section, and you have to paste it, make sure that our image is able to install it in the container. And the main thing we have to take understand is this one. It, it so it communicates the agent and PHP extension. We have to communicates with this socket. So we have to make sure that these sockets uh, are able to communicate within the so agent and this one. So this have to be configured correctly. So if the socket is different over in the agent, so this should not work. Okay, so as a conclusion, as you saw that it is a cool tool to make some code analysis for PHP. So we can detect the slower uh, slower parts in our code very quickly looking at the image, and it's cool tool. So it would be nice that we are acquainted with this kind of thing to make sure that we don't fall into the nasty problems of the execution times, and maybe especially in the production environment. When that happens, we have we want to know why the things are breaking quickly. We want to know where the problems are quickly. So uh, it is recommended that we start this kind of things before we get acquainted with this kind of things, before we run into problems, so that when we want if we want to work with this only when the problems comes, then it will take some time to get used to it, and it will not be fruitful at that time. So yeah, even this can be taken to the next step with the performance test. As I mentioned in the first slide, that we can write the performance budget test, so that our request should not take this amount of resource. If it takes more than X amount of resource, then that already it failed in the pipeline. And also use the live monitoring kind of things. So yeah, so in this presentation, I only focused on the profiling parts. I hope you guys enjoyed this and learned something out of it. Maybe this had been so basic for the guys who have already been using the Blackfire, but also very interesting to the ones who have never seen it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Angel Dai, for this awesome presentation. And yeah, as you said, it was really fascinating to learn about it, because I've never seen it uh, or even work with that. I've never heard of it before this session. So, okay, off to the question and answer round. Moving to the end of the session. As I said earlier, here at Proshore, we believe in creating a community where you guys can grow with us, and where we can share our knowledge and everything. So we would be hosting a lot of these events in near future as well. To get more information on it, please follow our social medias. अहिले drop गरिदिइसक्नु भएको छ. And yeah, we will send you a recording of it as well, Sudeep Bhattacharya. And there you can see a poll that's come up. Please vote for it, vote in it. And then you would also get another feedback form in your emails. Please kindly do fill those up as well, so that we can improve in this session as well, so we can give back to the community. So thank you all for coming, and have a great day.
And thank you very much, everyone. Nice to have you all today.